Okay, I think we're ready to start. So welcome to already 19th AdMind webinar. We have started this series at the beginning of the pandemic. Before we used to have meetings with different designers in our office, but the pandemic changed it to a more internet format, and we hope to keep both the webinars going and some meetings in the office when the pandemic allows us. This time we'll be hosting Oskar Drobczyk from our brand advisory team. We are AdMind agency. We are the biggest branding agency in Poland. We have offices in 5 different cities worldwide, and we hire 140 people at the moment. And the brand advisory team, which Oskar is a member of, is definitely unique on Poland scale and also not very common on a global scale. So we hope it will be interesting for both designers and brand managers that are today with us. One thing that I wanted to add is that we are now hiring. I will put a link in the chat for our careers page. We have now a fully remote policy, which I think I'm a good proof that it works, as I am now connecting from Tenerife in Canary Islands, while Oskar is live from our main office in Krakow. The presentation will last from 45 minutes to 1 hour, depending how fast will Oskar speak. And in the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session. So put any questions that you might have in the chat, and I will read them out later, or Oskar will read them out, we'll see. And if you can also ask questions during the presentation. If something is really important, I will interrupt Oskar, and he will have a chance to answer straight away. And now maybe Oskar, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can start the presentation.
Sure. So hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's a great series of webinars that we're doing to share a bit of knowledge and understanding and kind of the processes that we have. So it's great that you've joined, that you've had the time to do this today. So thanks. As Vavrin said, I'm a part of the brand advisory team. It's a kind of a specific, unique type of team, type of service that it's kind of hard to find in different places. It's also defined in different ways across the industry and different clients and different agencies. So we just wanted to share, our perspective on it, how we do it, how we use it to serve our clients and support them with their brands and the management of those brands. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the intro. I'm a part of the team. I'm working with one of the bigger clients that we have. So I'll be sharing some of the perspectives that I have on that. So let me just share my screen quickly. I'm assuming everybody can see everything, so hopefully we can just start. Okay, so you should be able to see the presentation. So the title is, as you can see, Do Companies Need Brand Advisory? So the idea is to sort of explain a little bit what that service is, what it does, what does it consist of, sort of like building blocks that we use ourselves to compose that service. And then also to explain the benefits of that service and, how it could be valuable to different types of companies and what kind of companies could benefit from it. So that's pretty much it. There will be 2 parts to this presentation. The overview part, so just a general explanation of how we approach this service and what do we do, and also benefits section. So sort of more of a high level consideration of what are the benefits and what is the value added for the client. So just to get you started, just a quick thought on what that service is and how we define it. I like to define it as a service that helps to develop a relationship between the company and the brand. So the idea is that there is a company, there's a group of people that work every day together. There are different processes, there are different situations that happen. There's a production of materials and assets and so on. And then there is that brand. So the idea of the team, of that service, is to really enhance that collaboration between the company, between the people that work with the brand, and between the actual, the very abstract sort of entity of the brand. So that's how we like to define it. Okay, so just to get you started and get an understanding of where that stands in terms of what that service, what that team could be, and how could it relate to the company and its brand. The idea is that obviously we have a company, we work in companies. The companies are sort of collectives of people. They have their own, culture, their own kind of little interactions, little specific things for each company. Obviously, business needs to be done. There's strategy. There's sales, marketing, money, everything that's normally going on within an organization, and those things sort of naturally create a sense of identity, right? So that's just how it works. When working in a company, we kind of feel a certain bonding, a certain type of identity that we share with the other employees, and also that we share with the processes, and that we share with the project, with the product that we might be releasing. So at a certain point, a lot of companies get to a stage where they really want to sort of organize that and really clothe that identity into a brand. So we're in a situation where we want to start designing a brand. We want to start composing a brand with an understanding of that company, right? So maybe you'll be, outsourcing that. Maybe you'll be hiring an external agency. Maybe your internal creative agency will be designing that brand for you, will be working on developing that brand. But the idea is that we have an understanding of the brand and of the company, and with that understanding of the company, we want to create a brand. And the idea is that it's a project, right? It's a finite thing. So it has a start, it has a finish. At the end, we want to have a brand that is well defined, that suits the needs of the company, and that could also be easily applied throughout different media. But that has an end. So once we have the brand, we still, the company is still functioning throughout the time. And as we progress through the time, circumstances change. We have different situations. We might be, creating new products, hiring new people. The strategy might be changing. There might be different new circumstances that still need to be considered in order to maintain that brand, and in order to sort of have it still fresh and be able to keep working with it. And that's exactly where the brand advisory team steps in. And again, as I said at the beginning, it's the idea of creating a relationship between the brand and the company. And as the company is evolving, as new decisions are being made, as new strategies being developed, new business opportunities are being pursued, we still want to maintain a high quality of brand application. So that's why we might want to consider that service or a team of brand advisory. So adjusting what has already been created to the new circumstances, and also throughout the time, throughout the different processes that are taking place within the company, from the point that the brand has been created all the way to some kind of future point. So that's a sort of high level, description of what this could be. Now I just want to start talking about the types of competences and different things that will be constituting that service. And I really want to emphasize that even though I sometimes refer to this as a team, because often it is executed in the form of a dedicated team. Like I work in a dedicated brand advisory team, but it doesn't have to be organized in this way, right? It's a service, or it could be formulated in a way that is suitable to a client. So even though I'll be sometimes saying that it's a team, please keep in mind that it's more of a service that is really flexible to these circumstances and to the particular way a certain company might be doing business and their operations and their internal processes. So when it comes to the competences, we want to have 3 types of competences within the team. Those could be, sort of embodied in particular people, but those could also be just competences that one person might have, and one individual might be able to sort of accumulate all of those competences. So ideally, we would want to have a graphic design competence, a graphic designer within the team, just because a large part of the brand is obviously visual identity. So we do want to have people that are capable of controlling that visual identity and adjusting it and changing it and having command over that aspect of the brand. We want to have brand designers, so people that would have a more overarching overview of the entire brand, right? So not just focusing on the visual aspect, but also considering things like communications, like strategy, being able to collaborate with marketing people, with salespeople, not only focusing on that visual aspect, but also taking into consideration all of the other aspects, from tone of voice to strategy, that are also included within the brand. And then we want to have communication experts. So communications is obviously a really large part of such a service or such a team. And that's because it's primarily communications focused. It's not execution focused. It's not focused on delivering design assets, although it might be doing that sometimes. But ideally, it's focused on communication, education, and sort of being a point of contact, a real knowledge base for the entire company, for everything that is related to a brand. Yes, and now I just want to give a sort of a general overview of other areas that the brand advisory team might be interacting with. Those areas are sort of brand related, and they could be also executed in a different way in different companies. So, sometimes those might be actual teams, sometimes this might be, different things. So please keep in mind that this is quite flexible, and depending on your particular setup, it will be slightly different or drastically different. So we want to start with clients brand management. Now, often, and especially when we talk about collaborating or working with really large clients, corporate clients, really huge companies, there would be a specific brand management or a head of design person or a team that would be making all of these strategic decisions, that would be having the most command over the brand and the control over the strategy, and all of the big decisions. So often when we have this kind of setup, we would be working with that management team, working with that head of design or whoever that would be, and supporting them with translating and communicating all of the strategies and the decisions that they might be making to the rest of the company, right? So to the rest of the teams, to the rest of the community, to different business areas, so that the brand management team could be focused on making the decisions and on strategy, rather than on also sort of being able to communicate them to everybody and make sure that it is universally understood. So just a few examples of what a client's brand management might be working on. Often when we have large companies, we might have situations of mergers and acquisitions, global marketing campaigns that would be that would have a really broad spectrum and really far reach. adjusting strategies to local new markets, partnerships and things like this, and also adjusting and changing the core brand strategy. So as the brand management is making those decisions and working on those strategies, it will be sort of distilled down to the point of, how do we communicate the fact that our company is being merged with another company or has acquired another company, another business entity, and now we have two brands. We need to make decisions of, how those are being used in the everyday, work and within designing certain assets, within, working with certain materials. So the role of the brand advisory team will be to understand the decision and then collaborate with the people that are executing that design, with the graphic design teams, with brand design teams that are working on implementing those strategies on a sort of lower level of design and implementation, so that we make sure that these are aligned with the strategy rather than just sort of more or less arbitrary choices. So that's why we can see here there are sort of two types of loops. We have a link between the brand advisory team and the client's brand management team. So the decision maker within the team, and those work together to develop an understanding within the brand advisory team. And then that unit would be translating those decisions down to the design teams and to the rest of the community through things like workshops, trainings, individual consultations, and things like this. So mainly, again, communication focus and being able to develop a relationship between what's happening, up there within the sort of strategy realm, and connecting that with the people that will be working with the effects of those decisions. So again, as I said, then we have the client's community. So we have everybody that would be working on the different materials and implementing different strategies, but also people like marketing executives, public relations teams, even sales teams, pretty much everybody that is somehow related to any kind of brand touch point. So they would need to apply a brand in a certain way. They would need to function within the brand, and they would have to have some sort of understanding of the decisions that were made in terms of strategy, but also the low-level kind of guidelines of how the brand is actually applied throughout different media, throughout different platforms. So the brand advisory team, in that case, would be really working as a first point of contact for the employees of the company. They could reach out to such a team. They could ask any questions. They could consult any particular projects or campaigns or product launches that they might have, and how well those are being aligned with the brand, as well as whether they're reaching certain benchmarks of what have been established by the management team. Another aspect that the brand advisory team might be touching on is the brand portal. So brand portal is it's a sort of hub for all of the assets that are being stored, all the assets that are related to the brand and that are needed to develop brands. So everything from logo, color palettes, typography, swatches and things like this. And even though the team might not be directly managing that portal, they would have a great understanding of what is in there, and where and how to use it. And they would be able to, again, serve as a point of contact and sort of point to certain assets. They would be able to explain certain concepts. So if someone doesn't know where to look for something, they're able to say, hey, here it is, you should be using this like this and like this and like that. And once you have a draft or once you have an idea of the project that you might be working on, feel free to contact us, share some of the drafts so that we might be able to point you in the right direction to say whether or not you're making good decisions, having the brand alignment in mind. Sorry, I think I missed something. Yeah. So another aspect that the brand advisory team might be working on is the sort of principles creation, and the idea behind that is principles or brand book or brand guidelines are needed with every brand. Different brands execute it differently. So sometimes they're executed in the form of brand portals. So we would have a web-based application or portal that would store all of the information, and everyone from within the company would be able to access that, just going there and getting what they need, getting the information they need. But sometimes in a simpler format, it's just a PDF that is stored somewhere, and someone might be able to access it and go to a particular section. And this is often organized in different ways. So sometimes there are entire teams that are developing those principles, and they're working on understanding how to develop those and what is needed. But sometimes these are created by the internal design teams or someone else. And the idea of having a brand advisory team participate in that is that team, because it is a sort of main point of contact for the entire company, for everything that is brand related, they have a broad overview of the issues that might be occurring, the certain needs, the certain expectations from the brand that are coming directly from the company, directly from the community. And therefore they had a good idea of how to, of certain areas that would need improvement or that would need expansion. So it's just, again, it's using that aspect of the team having the understanding of what's going on in the company and communicating that to the brand management team or someone who would be making a decision whether or not this would mean an expansion of the brand and what would be needed in order to implement it. So the team could also be providing different types of trainings. And the idea here is that, again, the team, it could be a service as well. If there is a large company that has a really well-developed brand, and they have different areas of that brand, and they have different sections and chapters in their brand book and so on, this would need to be communicated to the client's community and to the broader company. So a really simple type of training would be just a visual training that the team could be executing, just to educate everybody in the company about the basic rules of the brand application, the basic kind of decisions that motivate certain guidelines and so on, as well as explaining sort of area-specific concepts. So we might want to be talking about the application of the brand within the realm of sort of printed materials, or within the realm of digital materials, or video, or web design, digital design, and so on. So those could be shaped in a form of training and just delivered to groups of people that might be interested or might be working on certain projects, or just to the general community, in order to build an understanding of the brand and build an awareness that such a thing even exists, and that it has to be applied consistently in order to have a certain image outside of the company and also internally. Now, a different type of training that this team could be offering, and again, this goes back to the idea of brand advisory being a service and not only a dedicated team, is a sort of exploration workshops, discovery sessions. So if, for instance, you have a smaller company and there would be no point for you having a dedicated team of brand advisors and so on, but you still feel the need of having such a competence within your company, just to keep the brand consistency, just to be able to control what is going out and what is being produced internally. A service might be offered to you where there would be a workshop of trying to teach you how to develop those competencies within your team and within your company. So it doesn't have to be sort of like a lecture about a certain way of the brand is being applied. It could also be a workshop of which its aim would be to develop those competences and those skills within your own team. So that later you can take that knowledge, you can take the understanding and just keep using it within your company and growing like this. So that was an overview of just a general overview of what the brand advisory includes. So again, it's a service that could be a team, but not necessarily, that aims at developing that relationship between the company and its brand. And it could be executed through training, through certain contact points, through just educating the community and consulting individual cases. So now we'll go into discussing what are the benefits of having such a team, such a unit, and how does a team like this also measure its success, because it's a really sort of shapeless concept to have a team or a service that helps you develop that relationship with your brand. So how do we actually go about practically implementing that, and also measuring the success or the lack of success from using it? So I just want to start with goals. What are the sort of high-level goals and motivations that we would be striving to achieve? Firstly, we just want to increase the brand awareness and consistency. So obviously that should be an aim of every company. When we have a brand, we really want it to be consistent. We want it to be representing our company in a way that is beneficial to us. So awareness of the existence of such brand within the company is really important in order to achieve that. So secondly, we want to decrease the direct requests to the brand advisory team and sort of confusion that's revolving around having a brand, especially in larger companies. There always is an issue of sort of a certain type of confusion of not knowing how certain things are applied, not knowing that there even is a strategy for a particular thing, not knowing where certain assets are or what assets should be used to what type of project or material. So we really want to decrease that confusion, and then as an effect, increase the independence and brand implementation. So if we have creative teams within the company, we want them to be confident with the way that the brand is being applied. We want them to make sure that there always is a way of consulting things. There always is a sort of touch point that you can refer to, and in order to make sure that things that you're working on are applied consistently and appropriately. So in order to sort of achieve those goals and practically execute them, the brand advisory team or a service would be working through certain communication channels. So the idea is that alongside having the educational aspect and being able to educate the company and educate the community through workshops and trainings and things like brand portal and informing people where things are, we would also be able to handle individual requests and comments and consulting certain projects or certain campaigns on an individual basis, one by one cases. So in order to do that, we obviously have a set of communication channels. We would be using email, we would be using chat, different chat platforms, Slack, Teams, and so on. We could be talking in person to people. We obviously have different types of portals that we can refer to. As I said, we could have a brand portal that we can always directs to or points to and say, here is this thing that you're looking for, explained in a really easy to understand way. So we can use this as a leverage and a reference point for everybody. And then we would also have trainings for that more of an educational aspect of it. And the idea is that the requests that are coming through those communication channels could be systematically analyzed, and we could try to assign certain numbers to it and start to develop an understanding of what is the actual brand awareness of the company and how are people using and handling that brand throughout the projects that are working on. So in order to develop that understanding, we do need to start, measuring things. We need to have some sort of metrics. And even though, an understanding of brand awareness is a really sort of ephemeral concept, it's really abstract, we can at least try having some sort of metrics in order to be able to say, okay, we've done this and that, and then we've had this sort of effects. So as you can see, there's an example of what we do for some of the clients. We would have a log with all of the requests that are coming through, and we would be able to assign some information to each of the requests in order to later be able to refer to it and sort of draw some conclusions. So every time someone reaches out to us and every time someone says, I have this thing I'm working on, what do I do in this and that situation? We are able to, firstly, we just know demographically from where they are writing from which area of the business they're writing from, what type of projects they're working on, what is this project related to? Is it just a one-off, brochure? Is it a global marketing campaign, or is it a website, or so on? So we have those types of information. We have the demographic information, and we have the project sort of type information. We could also have a description, just a sort of additional note if there's anything outstanding. And then we could try to develop a rating system of how do we as a brand advisory team perceive that this person understands the brand. And obviously this is quite arbitrary and this could be done in many ways. But a general scale could be developed where we understand that if someone doesn't know what the company's logo look like, they have zero understanding of the brand. And if they're working on a global campaign and everything looks great, and then just asking a question about a certain intricacy of the project that they're working on in order to present the company in a better way with in a certain aspect of what they're offering, then we understand that their comprehension of the brand is on a really high level, and they really know what they're doing. So by accumulating all of this information and assigning all of those details to each request that we have, later throughout time, we're able to start drawing some conclusions. So what do we do when we have this sort of database? How do we extract information from it? Well, firstly, we can obviously see what the brand awareness is, what the understanding of the brand is, having implemented that sort of scale. And we can see how that changes for different countries, different regions, even different teams, different business areas of the client. What happens and how do they compare in between each other? And also from different perspectives in terms of types of projects that they might be working on. So we could be able to see whether the general brand application in the realm of, say, videos or visual media is better than digital design or print design. We can compare those between each other, and we can also compare how they differ from region to region and sort of business area and business unit to a different business unit. Again, we can see tendencies in project types, whether or not there is a better understanding of the brand in a certain types of projects. So again, digital as compared to print. Maybe we've been having more trainings for print and less trainings for the digital application of a brand, and then we can compare how those executions look against each other. And with having those information, we can start to see sort of long-term tendencies, and especially when we compare those to what we as a team have been doing in order to improve the situation. So if you say, well, this region normally produces really poor results, or this team produces really poor results when it comes to digital design, but we have done so many trainings for them, and we have also consulted so many cases with that team, with our group, and now throughout the time of a year or whatever, they were able to improve, and the quality of the work that they started producing was able to improve. So as you can see, we have those different areas that we want to measure, and then we want to compare that with the work that we are doing in terms of educating that community. And then in the end, we are able to draw conclusions, what actions of the team are actually producing good results, and what don't so much, not so much. So just a few statistics for one of the clients that we worked for. We were able to decrease the amount of requests coming through to our team by 30% between 2019 and 2020. And that is really important, especially at the beginning of brand, or where there's a brand update, or when the brand is still quite fresh, because when we have that kind of situation, there will be a lot of questions of the really simple nature. So where things are, where do I find the logo, or how do I place it on the page, and so on. So there needs to some time needs to pass, and a lot of training needs to be done in order to educate everybody about those basic aspects of the brand. And the more we do that, the more requests we answer, the more training we provide, the more those questions are starting to become less basic and more intricate. They relate to more of strategic aspects, more high-level aspects, rather than just being questions about how to find something somewhere. And we were able to increase the registries for our training sessions tenfold, and that was really important, because this really showed us that we were able to firstly communicate that there are such trainings, and that they're needed, and that they're valuable, and also by having that increased interest, also communicate other information to all of those employees. So far we're talking about the quantitative approach. So all of these things that we've just discussed were really related to having quite a lot of information and trying to shape them in a way that would be, and organize them in a way that would be practical for us as a team, in order to sort of understand certain tendencies and propose certain solutions. But we also need to remember that the team really operates on a case-by-case basis, and we really also want to have that qualitative assessment, that ability to look into individual cases and really consider what those cases include and how they're being executed. And this is really important, because from sort of general high-level view, we're not able to see certain things that might surface when we really discuss individual cases. And then we're able to, having those cases and having discussions about them, we could use different sort of frameworks to discuss what works, what doesn't, what kind of approach we can take in order to help certain people, gain more information to improve the quality of their projects. We can draw some conclusions, we can assign owners to some action points within our team in order to improve our framework, the frame that we work within, that would eventually support all of those individuals that come to us with their individual consultations. So just a few considerations areas, because right now I think I've been talking really broadly about quite a few things. So I just want to point out a few, sort of, again, considerations, concepts that if you see those things happening, it might mean that it would be valuable for you to either have such a person or a brand advisor in your team or externally, or just you would need to develop some sort of understanding and awareness of your brand within your company, and that this service would be potentially a solution to that. So obviously, whenever we see inconsistent brand application, that would be one of those sort of red flags. Whenever we see materials that are outgoing or circulating internally that do not, look alike, do not work together, that are using some sort of arbitrary approach in the development, that means there is a lack of understanding, or maybe a lack of process that will need to be developed in order to create that sort of consistency. Then we have two different areas: lack of brand awareness and lack of brand understanding. So these are sort of different things. So lack of brand awareness is when employees sometimes do not realize that there were certain decisions made about certain ways that the brand is being applied, and that those need to be carried out and sort of used on a daily basis. And sometimes they're not understanding those decisions. So again, it's a great opportunity to provide certain types of trainings, to consult certain individual cases in order to develop that understanding within the employees of the company. Again, we could have disorganized brand assets. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We could have an abundance of brand touch points, and that's really important because, especially when we talk about larger clients, really large companies, the sheer scale of the client, the sheer scale of the company would generate a lot of challenges. Even if we have a pretty good system, pretty good, well-organized processes, we might have some issues with applying and controlling that everywhere. So whenever a brand is applied by some different employees from different business areas, it would be really hard to control this, even though we might have a really good well-working system. Then when we have a frequent change of circumstances, that's really important as well, because especially for smaller companies, when we have a lot of new things happening, a lot of new strategies, new products, when we have things like scaling, employing a lot of new people, when we might have a lot of new customers, all of those things would generate a lot of movement in what the company is producing brand-wise and what materials are being released and published. So whenever there is a lot of movement, the dynamic changes within the business sort of aspect of the company, that means we might need such service. And a lack of review and approval process. This is quite true, especially for the bigger companies. Sometimes it's not very clear who's making decisions. Similarly, like the next points of decentralized decision-making process. It could be quite hard to manage your brand when we don't know who makes that decision, who's the decision maker. So a brand advisory team could serve as an entity that could be that decision maker, or it could be an extension of that decision maker, and sort of understanding of the brand manager or their head of design that might already be working in the company. And then the final one, the overload of the brand management team. I think that's quite natural. Again, that sort of refers back to the two previous points, where we have a brand management that really has to focus on the strategy and the high level application, and they're not being able to control and take care of the communication aspect and the educational aspect, and consulting every single individual case that is not like a huge global campaign. So when it comes to the execution and sort of way that the team is organized, again, this is a service, so we don't have to necessarily think that it has to be a team. It could be a service that is dedicated, to be reformative for different clients. So I just wanted to quickly go over two different scenarios. So one would be a very large sort of company set up, a huge corporation, a lot of brand touch points, potentially a brand manager team. And the challenges that such a company would have is obviously the scale, just the sheer scale of the company, and sheer dynamic of the processes would generate a lot of problems, a lot of concerns, and it would need to be managed and sort of controlled in a way that would not overload the brand management team. Obviously, communication, consistency, the approval process, so that again, brand management doesn't have to be overloaded with decisions. Things like budgeting, budgeting decisions for different campaigns, different projects, and misunderstanding of strategy. So again, the communication of the strategy to the entire community. And how such a company could be supported in terms of brand advisory. Obviously, that would be the situation where we could have a dedicated team of professionals that would be collaborating strongly with and closely with the brand management team. They would be able to support them with the decision-making process, but more importantly, with sort of distilling and communicating those decisions and communicating brand guidelines to the rest of the community, right? So to all of the other employees of the company. We could be working on, having a series of workshops from the different areas of the brand application of that client. Obviously, on-demand consulting, a dedicated communication channel, whether that be an email or a chat or something else, consulting all of the individual cases, as well as sort of large-scale projects and campaigns. And having a support of the brand portals, so all of the brand platforms that a client might have that the employees of the company will need to navigate through. And then for smaller clients, what is really a good solution is that they might not be able to have enough resources or have enough budget for having a dedicated team, nor they would necessarily need it. But they would still need some sort of brand understanding within their company and a common touch point for everybody to be able to refer to in order to consult, certain cases or to share knowledge about the brand that they might have. But they might not have a process for that, or a person who's responsible for that would not be able to dedicate 100% of their time to that, right? So it might be just an additional role that they will be taking. But it would not be the primary thing that they do every day. So from a standpoint of a service, what could be offered to such a client, such a team, is they could be taught, they're educated, it could be a series of workshops on how to implement and how to develop those competencies within your team and implement them in the specific circumstances of your company. So the people that you have available, the types of projects that you do, the kind of marketing, the kind of infrastructure that you have. If you have some sort of brand platform, so you're just using a PDF for a brand book and a system for your brand portal. So yeah, just going slightly approaching the end of the presentation. Just kind of rephrasing the question from the beginning of it. The title of the presentation: do companies need brand advisory? And the answer to that is obviously yes and no. It's a very specific service that could be geared towards achieving certain results, and that could be tailor-made for different companies. It doesn't have to be a team. It could be just a set of competencies that someone would be fulfilling. But it could be a really large team working globally supporting the brand management team 24/7. So it's quite important to understand that this is a really flexible service that could be adjusted to the particular circumstances of a company. But the idea is that we really want to improve the brand awareness of the client, and we would have different means of achieving that. And that is pretty much it. Oops. Yeah, thank you. So that's it when it comes to the presentation. I think I can stop sharing now. And we could quickly take a look at the questions.
Thank you, Oskar. I can read the question for you. And there's one question from Michał, but if you guys have any more questions, please don't hesitate and type them in either in the chat on the Q&A box, whatever your preferences, and I will read them out. So for the time being, we have one question from Michał. And the question is there any threshold at which companies should start considering brand management? Is it related to user base, number of employees, or both?
Okay, that's cool. Thanks for the question. I think sort of by default, the larger the company, the need of brand management team would be more apparent. But as I sort of said throughout the presentation, a brand sort of naturally, at least in my opinion, naturally arises with the creation of a company. So the competences of brand management would be needed in every company that has a brand that is being applied. It doesn't have to be a team, but it could be a role that someone's fulfilling even partially, even when we talk about very small companies. Even just to take an example of like a one-person company, even if you have just a company you're the only person in it, you still need to have some sort of way of applying your brand, however minimal it might be. And in that case, that would be you fulfilling the brand management competences. So, even such a small scale like this and a huge scale like, a corporation that has tens of thousands of employees, the brand application is necessary for everybody. And I think that means a brand management would be needed for everybody. But again, it's depending on the scale, it could be executed in different ways. Cool, I think.
So the second question is actually more a statement than a question. Amazing presentation, Oskar. Nice one.
Oh, thank you. Cool.
Any more questions, guys, to Oskar? There's more compliments coming, but no more questions so far. Anybody would like to ask Oskar anything else? I assume it's all the questions. So thank you very much on behalf of OneMind for this 19th webinar, and we'll soon have our 20th online. So please follow our social media for updates. It will definitely pop up at some point at your Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, whatever your preferences. Thank you for your questions and your time. And I'll give voice back to Oskar. Maybe he wants to thank you as well.
Cool. Yeah, thanks everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. It's been really nice. It's been a bit of a challenge for me to prepare this presentation, so I'm glad you liked it. And stay tuned for the future iterations of the webinar. I know the team has a huge plan for a lot of amazing content. So really looking forward to that. There'll be a lot of different topics. So yeah, stay tuned follow us on social media, subscribe, hit the like button, and yeah, thanks. See you later.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for today, and see you at our next webinars. Bye-bye.